Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be about spiritless humans. So let's jump in. These people are called empty people, puppet people, cardboard cutouts, drones, organic portals, and background characters. So why the term? Because out of necessity, they had to be invented by those who independently noticed the same puzzling phenomena, one for which there is no official name. I believe this started in around 1999. Somebody coined the term, or some people seem to be missing something very important inside. While they're not necessarily any less intelligent, successful, or physically healthy as anyone else, they nevertheless show no indication of having any higher components to their consciousness. I feel like Dave from Narcology, Unscripted. If you have your tea or your coffee, pour it with me. He's a good guy, by the way. You should check him out. I have to wear glasses. I'm starting to have to wear glasses because I'm getting old, y'all. But people noticed that some people were strangely one-dimensional and hollow inside. The observation is not hard to miss, but is easy to rationalize away, especially with modern society being so heavily brainwashed. First dawned in 1999, after having done, this individual had done much research into sociopathy and psychopathy, sociopaths, psychopaths, which is now APD, suffering under someone who had all the signs of a sociopath, heartless, soulless, noticed in the person an emptiness behind the eyes and a very shallow conscious essence, which seemed to be at the root of the behaviors observed. Later, others whose hearts was masked by a well-adapted social exterior. So later on, this individual was able to see in others that were the same way, but were masked by a well-adapted social exterior, if you're keen to it. And so he kind of became awoke, basically. In other words, what was being diagnosed was only the more extreme criminal sloppy manifestations of a condition otherwise expressed itself more widely in a social, acceptable, less incriminating manner. And that's what we've dealt with, right? The latter is what account for the body of empty people present in the population. So he's suggestive of just a small percentage of these are diagnosed, and the rest, the body of it, are still out there roaming about. So what is missing in them is clear if we look at their common behaviors and qualities of consciousness. Behaviors are glib, shallow, egotistical, narcissistic, mundane, predatory, and materialistic. Sometimes camouflaged by a polished social exterior, but anyone with a discerning eye can see through this disguise. Lack of individuality, independence, independent thinking, and a strongly based herd mentality. So I always say that they just go with what the matrix is putting forth, and that's it. Lack comprehension of anything beyond material sphere of the five senses. Have no interest in such metaphysical matters except as fleshly accessories to boost their social image. Very, very shallow, y'all. They appear entirely incapable of empathy, of soul-searching, and willful self-sacrificing, completely incapable. Nevertheless, in the presence of others, can put on a fleshly show of concern, distress, or altruism for purposes of social manipulation, such as crocodile tears to elicit sympathy, or doing something nice solely to guilt trip somebody and exploit them later. Flatness and inertness to their essence, even if their intellects are highly developed. So they could have a highly developed intellect and still be incapable of anything else outside the five senses. Unlike other people, their conscious energy is more diffuse, it's dull, impermanent, and amorphous rather than such as us, who are solid, sparkling, crystallized, and concentrated. They are like sand castles rather than the real castle. Something animalistic and rudimentary. Piloting their bodies, it seems they have conscious awareness like animals, but not conscious self-awareness, as humans are supposed to have. So it's very interesting, this guy. And I kind of, shortened it because this thing is like forever. But I wanted to go over some of these things. It goes beyond mere physical factors of the brain, defective genetics, or a poor upbringing, like missing portions, because these are just defects of the body. The problem under discussion here involves something missing in the consciousness operating that machine. So, it's not having to do with all those pieces. It's something that's operating this machine. What intuitive or clairvoyant perceptions pick up, that they are missing something metaphysical and not merely physical. And it has to do with the soul. But so we don't want to get confused with the soul, because this is what causes people to go sideways. So we're going to break it down differently, but completely devoid of individualized consciousness. They do have some kind of soul energy by virtue of being alive, but the soul is not imbued with a higher spark of true sentience or self-awareness. Okay, so the spirit is the permanent aspect of one's being, representing the true self, which accumulates experience of spiritual wisdom throughout life, and it survives death. It seems all humans have a spirit. Therefore, these individuals have no self-awareness, individuality, no wisdom, no empathy, no creative intelligence or consciousness. Total absence of destiny, synchronicities, symbolic dreams, or they can't have spiritual lessons or soul growth. Okay, and then when you get down to the soul is the non-physical energetic interface between the body and the spirit. So the soul works between the body and the spirit to connect the two. All right. And these individuals, it's not that they don't have soul, but they don't have a spirit, is what is broken down here to suggest. The soul is the etheric and the astral. Okay, so the etheric keeps the body from entropic disintegration or decaying. The astral is the aspect, intangible feelings, passions, not just chemical reactions in the brain, nor abstract in the mind, rather vivid energies residing somewhere in between the physical and the metaphysical, the astral soul. The ego of the body is the fundamental purpose to ensure survival of the body. External environment conditions program the ego. So the ego has no true consciousness of its own. It's described as if a player in Sims was using this character, then it would be like the spirit type. But when he let go of them, goes to a different character, that person out there would be doing something, but it's unconscious. That would be like their ego. So when basically in the arcade game, the guy is not controlling that individual with the joystick, but that individual is a background character. The ego, entirely a product of the past. So the ego is formed by environmental survival type stuff, but the spirit is entirely outside of linear time. The first is completely determinate, meaning the ego. The first thing we talked about, it's completely determinate. You could probably break down what the ego will not do if you study a person long enough, is what this is suggesting. And second, meaning the spirit, is completely non-determinate, meaning you don't know what the spirit's going to do, because that is not programmed. The first is the ego, which is emerged of property of matter. So it's kind of considered the body, part of the function of the body. The second, which is the spirit. The spirit is the second, which is permanent condensation of consciousness. They're impulses that are diametrically opposed, one pulling toward materiality and the other towards spirituality. The ego is an extension of the body, and the spirit shines through the mask. So the spirit is your individuality. The body, for instance, will get feelings when something occurs of euphoria, but the spirit invoking a lofty feeling of spiritual joy. And that's something that they don't have. The body, or the ego, soul, lacks the spirit. So basically, the soul would be what mediates between the body and the spirit. But if there is no spirit, then you just have the body, and the ego goes with the body. The only thing that shines through is the spirit. And if you lack spirit, then you just have basically the seat of intelligence without the counterweight of the spirit. Their ego would reign king. And that's what we see. There's the material and social survival, and that's what they turn into. The spirit has spiritual impulses that serve no financial, social, or egotistic gains. The spirit's not concerned of that. Without the spirit, they gain more quickly and succeed possibly more in the world, in the environment of the world, regarding wealth, regardless of the cost to others. And without the spirit, they almost like, it's almost like they can't advance. Without the spirit, you cannot advance. And when it gets to reaping what you sow, you get to a place to where it's so for somebody that has a spirit, when you do something bad or evil or whatever, you generally speaking, you'll reap a bad harvest if you do something evil. If you do something good, you'll reap a good harvest. But also you could repent, and that bad reaping may not come to you if you genuinely repent before it hits you. So basically, God may have grace on you and take it away because you learned from it. So you had spiritual wisdom and growth. And if we didn't learn from it, a lot of times we will have to go through a situation that's hopefully going to teach us what we need to learn, so we don't treat people that way or act that way or be that way. And so when you get into the situation with the narcissist, there's certain things that they will reap and sow, but they're almost in such a bad state from the jump that it's not going to do them any good. I mean, you can have them reap a bad harvest every day and they still wouldn't learn from it. But it's kind of because they've given themselves up spiritually to something evil and gotten to a point where they can't change it. Basically, what this is saying is that you have these people that can go around and they can wear a mask and it looks pretty good. But if you've woken to this type of stuff, then you'll be able to see through it. And you'll see certain key things that they don't possess, as far as like in-depth conversation and doing things out of the goodness of your heart, being able to think on an intuitive level that's deep and think more abstractly, to have things occur in your life and teach you spiritual wisdom and growth from that. And they don't have these things going on for them. And it's really not that they lost their soul, but what they really lost is their spirit. And that to me makes a little bit more sense, because the soul is what mediates the body from the spirit. But if there is no spirit, then the body takes over. The body is also in control of the ego. And it's almost like they're an autopilot, but something else animalistic is controlling them. and it's has to deal with everything dealing with materialistic situations and lust, flesh. Remember, I always say that. So they they don't learn anything. They don't have any growth spiritually, and they're disconnected from reality. And that's why they go into a circle to nowhere. And that's why when you're in a relationship with a narcissist, at some point in time, they will break up with you. And it's called a cycle. And I say different things about the cycles, and I think all of those are probably true. All the things that I've named, for instance, the insatiability of the demon is what their cycle is connected to. But also, you can only go so far with a narcissist in a relationship to where they will stop. They will stop because they can't think any further. They can't produce the next level, because if you don't have love and you don't have commitment, you don't have any of the fruits of the spirit, then you can't go any farther after a certain period of time. And I think what you're seeing when you see these people all running on tracks is you're seeing people that don't have any love, y'all. You're seeing individuals that are minus the 9 fruits of the spirit and their spirit, because we all can have ego, and a lot of times when people meet individuals, maybe they're not seeing who you truly are yet because you don't know them. So you kind of have this kind of front maybe. But as people get to know individuals, you are authentic with them. But in this world we live in, we have to have some kind of protection, boundaries, right? And I think that was part of our problem too, is we didn't want to have boundaries because we wanted to be, kind of sometimes in some thoughts, you wanted to be real with people, but you can't necessarily always be real with people in the very beginning or when you're just meeting individuals that you don't know anything about them. You have to have some sort of boundaries in place until they get to know you or till you get to know them. And the spirit is what mediates the body from the soul mediates the body from the spirit. And if there's no spirit, then you just have body, which would be no inside voice. So basically what I'm getting at is that we have to consent for bad things to happen to us, right? It could be unconscious, it could be conscious, it could be written, and it could be verbal. And regardless if we know what we're doing, I think in some ways our unconscious probably knows maybe the truth. It's kind of like if you have intuition, but you're not listening to it. But after the fact, you know that it was telling you things when you rewind, right? After you woke up to narcissism. And so we're kind of at fault for that. I mean, I'm just saying that's my personal opinion. And so we have to consent to things. And so we live in a world of free will. But in the situation with the narcissist, it's almost like every piece and every thing that's supposed to represent or that they're missing has to do with free will. And that's why I say that they've given up their free will. They've handed it over to somebody, and it's the enemy, and it's as if they can't get it back. And that's why it's hard to, like I said in the past podcast, it's hard for, in my humble opinion, it's hard for them to reap any further than what they're already reaping on a daily basis. Meaning, outside from what they are, sometimes you may not see them reap things like if you were doing the same evil that they were on a daily basis. But, they're already in a state of death. So they can't be taught anything, and certain things may not apply to them exactly the way that they apply to us. But that doesn't mean anything except like I originally said, you need to just make sure you get the hell away from them. Because when you're around them, you end up paying for a lot of it. And they steal your blessings and your fruit out from under you, unless you have to gray rock them. And so that's where I think that they've given up on their free will. They had it. They just gave it. They gave it freely to the entities that have now overtaken them. But you know what? We don't know the narcissist. Nobody does except the narcissist, because they don't even let anybody in. But the fact of the matter is they probably enjoy who they are. I mean, they may enjoy the sorrow and the emptiness they feel. Who the heck knows? But my point is they'd rather be what they are today than to be us. And what do they always say in psychology is that they hate being a regular person. Well, I'd rather be a regular person any day than a narcissist. But we're also about things of the spiritual. I'm going to heaven, y'all. And I'm going to do or try to be more righteous on a daily basis, than I have in the past, and learn from my mistakes and change places where I need to change and grow from it spiritually in wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. In all that get understanding, because when you get understanding, understanding changes you, because you kind of understand the full regimen of what just happened. But it's better if you can obey the word instead of having to get some sort of particular understanding, going through folly and wasting time, energy, and pain to get that understanding. If we would have just obeyed in the very beginning what the word said, we wouldn't get in a lot of these situations and predicaments. But in life, it happens, and we learn a lot of things through anything we go through if we are spiritually minded. And so I just wanted to leave that with you today, and I hope it helps somebody out there. Till next time, soldier up.